In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? My media products have taken inspiration from other real media products today. These have used, developed, and also challenged forms and conventions. Using social realism, a genre that interests me, allowed me to research films I'm familiar with. Researching a range of social realism films gave me an insight to what a social realism film needed. My first product included a poster. My research was helpful in finding what was conventional in order for my products to be appealing. I found the key signifier of most posters were the main images. These were fairly large and dominated a majority of the poster. I thought this was effective and therefore decided to use this convention of my image consuming a majority of the space. I used this as I gathered a large main image was a convention which appealed to my target market. From a questionnaire I had made, I was given feedback to what appealed most to people on a film poster. The main image had received over 25% of votes, and this had reflected on why real media products select to use this today. My research gathered a number of characters were starred on posters across social realism films, and I found this was conventional. From investigating that using all main characters was effective, I reflected on this and decided to display all 3 of my characters on my poster. My questionnaire had also backed that people like to see a number of characters on the poster rather than just the one. Using this would appeal to a wider range of people, due to the fact they may like a particular character. My film's moral was based on giving people a negative impression of the youth. This was the same target market as most social realism films I had looked at. Characters across the social realism genre were generally connoted as violent. Kid Hood, Green Street, and Shank are some examples of this. I could see this was the case with all male characters dressed in hoodies and positioned in abstract positions. Their facial expressions were serious, which also made them look violent. I chose to use this convention in order for my characters to create the same negative impact, and therefore I had dressed the characters in hoodies and hats. This was the stereotypical clothing of the youth in social realism films. Props played a major role in the film in order to give some insight on the narrative. One of the main characters in the Kid Hood poster had a baseball bat in his hand, and this gave me an enigma. The baseball bat told me that it could be a changing point in the film. This was because it was important enough to feature on the poster, and it also told me it played a big role in the film. I could also refer the baseball bat to that character, and this made him look powerful. Creating an enigma was essential to the narrative of the film, and my research shows that this was a convention a majority had done. Like the baseball bat, I decided to use a bag. The bag the boy is holding also creates an enigma, asking questions like what lies inside the bag, and it also tells us that the bag plays a big role in the film. Camera shots, including a long shot, were shots I found frequently used on posters. I knew a long shot was conventional when I broadened my research. After looking at Kid Hood and Green Street, they both use different shots, and this is why I needed to broaden my research into what shots were conventional. I found a long shot was conventional, and posters including Shank and 4321 had used this. This was to establish a location, and connoted the genre of the film. Kid Hood, as an example, had used this, and an urban skyline could be seen as the location. However, I had challenged this convention and used a close-up of the characters instead. I found using a close-up would emphasize the characters, and this would appeal to an audience. We get a clear image of the moods of the characters, and the brick wall I have displayed in the background, also part of the mise-en-scène, does enough to connote the genre as it creates an urban theme to the film. Stereotypically, I found both black and white characters were frequently starred, particularly in social realism films. This was a typical convention of portraying people as violent. I therefore decided to use characters of a white and black race. However, I had also challenged this stereotype, and I had used an Asian character. I did this in order to create a wider target market for my film. This is because some Asians can associate themselves with this character. Across the film posters, I gathered it gave an insight on the narrative. This was a very important convention I had to use. Levi Strauss's theory could suggest a binary opposite of good v bad. I investigated that this was the case with the positioning of the characters on the poster. I used this theory which created a friction between the characters and gave an insight of the narrative. Carol on the left and Danny on the right are seen besides Jermaine. Both the characters on the left and right are made to look strong and dominant as they look directly towards the male character. I wanted to do this in order to make it clear who the dominant characters were. The middle character is made to look confronted and afraid, and we can see this as he has the two boys looking from either side of his shoulder. Some point along the film, we can identify the character may have done something in order to make the others feel angry, and this could be the turning point in the film. This creates an enigma of what the character Jermaine had done. The title of my film needed to fit in with the genre style and give an insight of the narrative of the film. Stolen shows that there will be theft within the film and can easily be associated with the young characters. This is because of the negative representation and stereotype of the youth being criminals. I saw from looking at other social realism films that the titles were short, and it instantly told me what the film could be based about. Kidulthood and Green Street are examples which told me this. I knew Kidulthood was about young adults causing trouble with the word hood being used. Green Street had told me the film would be based about the streets. Therefore my title needed to be strong and effective. The font of my title needed to have an urban look, and I decided to use this convention. Urban Jungle, the font style I had used, included a city landscape and connoted the streets. When looking at other film titles, they were similar, and so doing this it connoted the genre. The title was fairly important, as I gathered from my questionnaire. It received the second highest number of votes into what appeals the most on a poster. I gathered this needed to take up a fair amount of space, and I placed this at the very top of the poster. This was done in order for it to be the first text the audience should read. After looking at the layout of the Green Street and Kidulthood title, it made my product different, as both of these were placed towards the bottom of the page. However, after broadening my research, I gathered it was conventional to place the title towards the top of the page, as other social realism films had done this, including Shank and 4321. Using this convention also worked out better with the image I had captured, as I didn't want the key parts of my mise-en-scène to be affected, like the characters' faces. This would be the case as I would have to place a building block towards the top of the page. Everyone's after something is a powerful enigmatic tagline. It uses Bartha's Enigma code, which creates a question in the audience's mind to exactly what people are after. Looking at the Green Street tagline, it did the same. Stand Your Ground created an enigma of what people were fighting for, and I think the technique is a way of getting the audience interested in the film. It creates question points rather than giving the whole narrative of the film away. During my research, I gathered a number of people thought the tagline was what interested them the most on the poster, and therefore I thought this convention of a tagline was appropriate to include. I gathered from my research that there wasn't particularly a colour scheme that could be associated with social realism. All posters had used a selection of different colours in relation to their film, and I decided to use this and create my own colour scheme. I wanted my film to represent a negative image, and I had used a black colour for the title of my film. I did this in order to connote danger and violence, which created an impact on the audience. I further found black was a popular colour people preferred, which I gathered in my research. I also found films chose the colour of the typography, like the building block, in relation to the image colours. This was to make the text stand out. I had taken this in mind and had used a white font as a result of it being clear on my poster. Institutional information, including the building block, was essential. This included the cast, director and production company. This increased the audience knowledge of the film and could increase the potential consumer. I gathered from my research that big companies or star actors can appeal to an audience, and therefore this was a good marketing strategy to use. I found using building block was conventional, and many film posters in social realism did this, like Kidulthood and 4321. However, I also found films like Green Street hadn't used this due to preference that one wasn't needed, but my further research supported me to use this as I thought it was an important convention. I found across the range of film posters that the typography of the building block were in a similar font to one another. Steel Tongs, the font I used, was the same as these posters, and therefore it could be recognised to an audience as the building block. Institutional companies including Revolver Entertainment and Gunslinger I had made clear with placing these logos beneath this. I knew this was essential to include, as I gathered it was a typical convention, as all posters I looked at used these logos. It also gave me more of a reason to use, as I gathered it was a good marketing strategy, as people would be clear on who was involved in the production of the film. Choosing Revolver Entertainment and Gunslinger were chosen due to the number of many films within social realism made by these companies. Therefore, I needed to choose a popular choice in order to make my film brand look eminent. One last marketing strategy I included was the website. I used this convention and found displaying the website told an audience they could have access to further information about the film. This was good in order to get people talking about the film through these further features. During my research, I gathered my website had to be similar to my poster in order for it to be familiar with one another. My imagery is the same one I had captured for the poster. I gathered that this was the conventional approach, as a majority of websites I looked at had done this, including Green Street, 4321 and Shank. I used this convention as it offered good continuity throughout my products. In order for my film to become clear, I need to provide additional information on my website, including the trailer, which gives an insight of the narrative. I found embedding the trailer was a typical convention, as it allowed viewers to have instant access to the trailer. However, I had challenged this convention and didn't embed my trailer on the website, as it would have interfered with my image that was captured. However, I had made this accessible through my navigation bar. Displaying a navigation bar was a typical convention I found on film websites. Therefore, I had used this. This was in order to allow viewers access to further features related to the film. Within the navigation bar, headings on the videos was a frequent option used to further promote the film. My navigation bar included a video icon, which gave viewers something to watch which was involved with the film. During my research, I also gathered that this was what people most wanted to see on the website. To further show the institutions of the film, specific tabs on the cast and the director of the film could be accessed. This was done due to the billing block not featured. I found a billing block on a trailer was an important convention to a website, but I challenged this as I decided to use the institutional information in my navigation bar. I felt it gave the website a modification to others and allowed the viewer to have access to this information through a different way rather than just from the billing block. The typography I had used included the same as the poster. This was conventional in making my film recognizable through the font. I used this and my website includes the title in an Herbal Jungle font. This was the font I used for the poster title, and I had made the navigation bar in the same font. I did this so it created a consistent theme of social realism. Viral marketing has become a huge marketing strategy in the film industry. When analysing the websites, I needed to note what website links they had used. It wouldn't be necessary to include website links which no one would be interested in, so I needed to choose the right links to engage the viewer. I found social networking links were popular on film websites. A majority of the websites I looked at included web links to the institutional companies involved with the film. However, I developed on this and thought social networking links were as important. I gathered this when broadening my research into other film websites. I had included both links to institutional companies as well as social networking links to the film's page. From my questionnaire, I gathered over 60% of people said yes, they would like to see social networking links on the website, so I chose to use this convention. I found it also gave people the chance to talk about the film with one another. Colours used on the poster were also used on the website. This kept a consistent colour scheme, and during my research I found this was the best thing to do. The reason for this was because keeping a consistent colour scheme was conventional, as it made it familiar and one could also relate these colours to the film. I understood that an expert's opinion was always useful in the promotion of the film. Green Street's website had included a number of awards they had won. This wasn't a popular convention used for obvious reasons that not all films had won awards. This made it a good marketing strategy in promoting the film, and made the film look diverse to others I had established, as not all films had won these awards. This created a USP to the film, and I wanted to do the same. I made use of this additional space offered on the website and decided to use this convention.